Have you ever had a conversation with an insurance agent and they were like, yeah, right on, I'll get onto it. We'll get a proposal out to you for a commercial real estate property or something like that. You wait for a week, you kind of wonder what's going on. Then it's 2 weeks, you check in and you get some kind of story or excuse, and it's 3 weeks and you still don't have a quote. Sometimes it's even a month from when you first had that conversation. You're going, why in the world does it take an entire month to simply get a quote from an insurance agency? And I totally had a scenario today that made me laugh about the whole thing, so I thought I'd create a video. We'll get into that right now. But first, my name is Jeremy Goodrich. I'm the owner of Shine Insurance, and I am the commercial real estate specialist here. Commercial real estate is all I do. So if you own commercial real estate across the country, reach out to us and see if we are the right fit for you. All right, so someone reached out to me today. Actually, it was an underwriter who I was reaching out to. And I was like, hey, it's been like a week and a half at this point. What is going on? And they said to me, my company is getting to dates, effective dates that are a month from now. How quickly do you need this? So let me just say that again a little bit more clearly. The person who is making the decisions, who's actually putting the numbers together, is getting to effective dates that are a month from now. How quickly do you need this? So let's back up for a second and just give you an overarching description of how insurance companies work. So in the way I like to lay it out is there are tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3 insurance companies. As an independent agent, I go to all of them if I need to, but I always start with tier 1 companies. Tier 1 companies have the best claims experience. They have the best coverage for the best price. So that's obviously who you want to go to first. Tier 2 companies have a little bit worse coverage, a little bit higher price, and tier 3 companies, a lot worse coverage generally and a lot higher price. Generally, you say, well, why would we ever not want to go to tier 1 companies? Well, tier 1 companies are really, really picky. They're going to say no a lot. They're going to say no if a building was built before 1980. They're going to say no if the roof is old. They're going to say no if they don't like the way the neighborhood is when it comes to crime and stuff like that. They're going to say no for a lot of reasons. So it's great when we can be with tier 1 companies, but we can't always be with those companies. Sometimes we have to go to tier 2, and sometimes if we've got a heavy lift, ton of renovations, really low occupancy, maybe older systems, materials, things like that, we're going to have to go to a tier 3 company. The speed of the quote from each of those also gets longer generally. So when I'm looking at a tier 1 company, I could sometimes get a quote for that in a day. In fact, I just put a policy in place for a 24-unit complex where the person realized that their other insurance agent let coverage lapse or made some mistake, and they reached out to me and said, hey, can I get coverage in place by the end of the day today? I said, sure. The property happened to be something that we could put in a tier 1 company. I was able to get the quote, get coverage in place, everything taken care of the same day. The biggest reason that that was possible is that I was going to a tier 1 company. Now, I may have been able to pull all that off with a tier 2 or tier 3 company, but I would have had to pull some strings and leverage my relationships with the people at those companies. So tier 1 companies, you should be able to get a proposal certainly within a week, right? But if we have to go to tier 2, then or tier 3 certainly, then it can take longer. So what is it that makes it take longer? Well, the reality of it is a couple of things. One, oftentimes with tier 2 or tier 3 companies, your agent, which is what I am, is going to a broker who is then going to the actual insurance company. And sometimes that broker is going to another broker who is then going to the insurance company. I'm hitting stuff over here. So a lot of times there is a chain of humans, all of which are responsible for their step in the process. So if I'm going to a tier 3 company, a lot of times I have to send stuff to a person who works with agents. Then that person turns around and goes to the next person. Maybe that's the actual underwriter, or maybe they go to another person after that, depending on what the scenario is and how that works. So every time there's a step in the chain, it takes longer. When it finally gets to the desk of the person who is making these decisions, and sometimes it is literally sitting on the desk. I'd like to think there is not paper like there used to be, but a lot of times people are literally printing out applications and setting them in a stack. They're going to set them in a stack, and if it's a virtual stack, if it's digital, whatever, it's still kind of a stack. They're going to set them in a stack based on the effective date that the agent put on the application. So let's say it's September 15th. And if I put the effective date of October 15th on the application, then when it gets to the desk of the person who we're working with here, they're going to put it underneath all the ones that are effective dates of October 14th. And those are underneath the 13th. Those are underneath the 12th, and so on and so forth. So they're actually putting it in a stack based on the effective date. So you say, well, that's easy, Jeremy. Let's just put an effective date of a week from now. If you put an effective date of a week from now, you're lighting a fire. You're saying, hey, I need this right away. I need you to prioritize me over all of these other people. I need you to move this to the top of your stack. Now, that's fine. And, I have great relationships with my company folks and all the people in that chain when I have to go up that chain, but I'm asking for a favor. And if I did that every time, then I would be asking for a favor every time, and suddenly then people don't want to respond to you in the same way. So there's this game that we are playing on our side about when we can even get a quote. So why does a quote take an entire month? Well, generally when that happens, one, we're working with a tier 2 or a tier 3 company. There's something about the property that you're trying to get a quote for that the tier 1 companies are saying no to. That's the primary thing. And then probably the other one is that we have an effective date off into the future. A lot of times we're buying a new property, right? And so that effective date is way off in the future. We're just early in due diligence. So that gets taken into account, and the agent has to play that out and figure that out. So I hope that gave you some insight as to why quotes can take so long. So how can you solve that? Well, having an agent that is connected is a big key. While we're not going to move stuff to the top of the stack every single time, we respect our relationship with our underwriters. We're certainly going to submit things that are properly put together, give the underwriter all the information, and most importantly of all, we are going to vet our investors so that we know there is a high likelihood that if this company gives us a quote, that policy is going to get put in place. Companies want to know, most of these underwriters make their money because they place business, not just create quotes. And so they want to know that you're the kind of agent that when you come to them, you say, hey, it's a great investor. I've talked with them. I know that they're coming to me. And I am putting companies, I'm putting this out to multiple companies as I always do. But there's a high likelihood that we're going to get this if you can get it at the price that I need it at. So there's all those things are happening. And that's how you can make it happen faster. You also need to communicate with your insurance agent, obviously, make sure they know when the time you actually need it is. And most importantly, you need communication from your insurance agent as to what is happening here. Where in this process are you and how is it going to work? Communication is key. That's something I always try to do there. So there you go. Why does it take an entire month to get a quote? Well, it's probably a tier 3 company with a future effective date, and they're just putting it off until they get to that point in their stack because they have a ton of applications. Hope that was helpful. All right. We'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.